We didn't have too many games today, but some of the ones that were there were super exciting. The Nuggets and Suns played out a classic. It was a playoff atmosphere. Jokic went going. Booker signed off with 49 points. Chris Paul returned and he showed that he didn't really miss much because he was back playing it like his usual self.
Yeah.
The Bulls, though, lost to the Pelicans in a surprising fashion because now the Bulls are struggling big time, and there might be a scenario where they might not even make the playoffs directly. They might have to play the play-in. They're in fifth spot right now, but the Raptors and the Cavs are right behind them, so never know. The team I want to talk about today, though, is the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. Two teams, for me, the top two teams in the East right now, on form, on paper, everything. So let's talk about the Celtics and the Bucks, two teams in green today. We'll start off with the Boston Celtics because I think we've been delaying talking about the Celtics from a long time. We're waiting for them to have this bubble burst, which has not happened in like 2.5, 3 months now almost.
Yeah.
If you remember the start of the season, we were criticizing Boston because they had no identity. They had two superstars but no identity because we didn't know the style of basketball. You didn't know whether they're a 3-point shooting team or they're a defensively strong unit. They didn't have personality to that team, right?
Right.
At one point in time, I think they were like the Atlanta Hawks. They were like around 10th, 11th in the table, and suddenly, I don't know what switched or what flipped. They are insane in defense now. They don't concede 100 very often. Since the All-Star break, in fact, since the new year, if you look at the defensive numbers, the distance between the first team and the second team, the Boston Celtics and the second team, is wider than the team which is second and the 10th. That's how far ahead they are. What has changed for them since the start of the season? I mean, this looks like a totally different unit. Although the personnel is the same, the players are the same, their playing style hasn't changed a lot. What really has changed for them?
I just think maybe just the fact that it's a coach that is still coming to terms with the squad and the team, coupled with the fact that this squad still, I think the form glosses over some of the deficiencies. They still have a big man problem. Let's see how they deal with it in the playoffs. Maybe they can overcome it, but it is something to overcome. And they still have two very young players who, while we say the team doesn't have identity, these are also two players that are still finding their feet. Their skills keep evolving rapidly. And so they've got to decide what kind of players they are, and also about how do they fit into the system. What kind of players do they be within the system? James Harden's one player in Houston. He has to be another player in Brooklyn.
Right.
And situations and setups and tactics, require you to adapt. Unfortunately for both of them, neither of them is at the level where the entire team is molded after them. Not yet, or at least maybe they are, but that's not how the franchise functions. So I think a combination of all of these things and just the in general, Marcus Smart easy in, easy out kind of volatility which always surrounds him. I think all of these factors were at play. Initially, when we said there's no identity, it also had to do with it's not that we said they don't know their identity. We don't know if they know what their identity is. All we know is they were experimenting left, right, and center, and it's never a bad thing, but it only works and once it starts showing results. Until then, everyone's going to say, you're confused. It's what always happens when you're experimenting, right? Every mad scientist ever has been accused of first being mad and then being recognized as a scientist.
They're on this West Coast road trip right now, and they won 5 of their 5 out of 5. They beat the Warriors, the Nuggets, Sacramento Kings, OKC, and then they thrashed the Utah Jazz yesterday. It's kind of the Celtics don't win close games anymore. They're winning by 25, 30 points. At the end of the half, if you look at the score, they're always leading by 20. You expect them to beat the Sacramento Kings and OKC, but to consistently beat these teams by 25, 30, it is putting out a statement out there. I mean, it shows the level of dominance. It shows that, you could see that earlier in the season, Houston Rockets won 6 in a row, and I would not be too surprised. It happens. You put on a streak, you put on a good 2 weeks, and you can win 6 in a row, right? But this is like a long stretch. This is 25 games. They're 21-4 in their last 25 games. So this is a long stretch. It is 1/3 of the season almost, right? So would it surprise you if the Celtics made, say, the conference finals? If you take out the Milwaukee Bucks, I think they can beat all of the other teams in the Eastern Conference. Would I be fair in saying that?
Yeah, I think they can. I think they can. It's with some teams like Philadelphia, it'll be a lot more challenging than the others. Not just because of the caliber of the opponents, but because of the nature in which that caliber is arranged in the lineup. That the only thing that keeps haunting me is their big man issue. They just don't have a big man. But then I guess the counter argument to that is who really has a big man to take on, say, an Embiid or the likes of Embiid. You don't. So then you kind of mitigate or minimize the damage on that front, and you try and win the game at the other end. Do they have the defense to take on Harden? I think they do. Nobody's shutting down Harden in the league, but you can make it harder for him to score. You can make force him to pass the ball up on players, and you can bring down his shooting percentage, and that's the ball game. I think they can take every team there. I think they can take every team. I'm still not convinced they can beat the Nets though. So let me say every team except the Nets. It'll be interesting though. It'll be interesting to see because a lot of Boston's defense is also perimeter defense. Their interior defense is okay, but really what kills opponents is their perimeter defense. So how does that stack up against Kyrie or Kevin Durant, both of whom can finish in the interior? They've got solid mid-range, they can shoot from deep, and they've got either the size or ball handling skills, or sometimes both, to unlock most defenses. So I think there's still a little. I don't get that comfort yet. For some reason I don't see Boston as that elite yet. But I think they can take on everyone else, and if luck goes their way, they're in the conference finals. I won't be surprised.
Yeah, they're just half a game behind the second spot right now, and the second spot is something that teams have been looking toward. When I say teams, Philadelphia has been looking toward. I don't think Milwaukee Bucks cares who they're meeting in the first round. I think they're past that. They're not scared of anyone. And I think I see that a little bit in Boston Celtics as well. I think they wouldn't mind meeting the Brooklyn Nets. Would you rather face Brooklyn Nets or would you face Cleveland Cavs? Of course, you take the Cleveland Cavs. But if you don't have an option, if you end up facing the Brooklyn Nets, I think Celtics are a team that wouldn't be scared to go head to head against Kyrie and KD and Seth Curry and Drummond and all of those guys. I think it's a team that nobody really looks and says, okay, this is a championship team. But I really think they're playing really well. I honestly think they can take on the Brooklyn Nets as well. It's a bold statement, I know, but
they can. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just saying I'm not.
Because in the last 2 months, I think Jason Statham,
yes, him and Vin Diesel have really put on an amazing.
Yes. Jason Tatum has kind of elevated himself, I would say. I mean, we look at these last 2 month numbers, and you talk about how Luka Doncic has elevated himself, and then you talk about the MVPs. Always, it's Giannis and Jokic and Embiid. Tatum silently has been putting up insane numbers. He's leading his team to victories. If you look at the last 2 months, I think Jaylen Brown has been pretty ordinary. He's getting 20 points, bad shooting nights, whatnot. But Tatum, every single night, he's been coming out there and playing like a winner, and he's getting those wins. He's elevated probably to that next level, which we've been waiting from years now.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
So, two things. One, I've been telling this for a while now, that you and at least 4 people I know overvalue Jaylen Brown. Very often I hear
I overvalue him because he's part of my fantasy team. I don't care otherwise.
I watch your excuse on Halliburton. Sentimental attachment. All these rookies get so much benefit of that. Jaylen Brown with him, he's like a McCollum level, better, but in that mold where if this is the Trailblazers, Tatum is Dame and the Brown is McCollum. He's a better version of McCollum, but he's still a number 2. He's not a 1A, he's a number 2. And this I've firmly always believed. So I'm not very surprised that push comes to shove, there is separation. Could also be that maybe he's disgruntled. Jaylen Brown, there were rumblings of
I don't think that's the case anymore. At least it doesn't reflect on the court.
No, not that the team anymore wants to trade him. It's just, I don't know. With the Celtics, there's just so many tantrums in the background. Half the time they implode. It's either Smart is really into it or Smart is not really into it. And no matter what Smart does, every now and then the trade rumors pop up again. Every window they try to toss him around for somebody or the other. So it's not a very good situation there. But for me, Tatum, he should already be in the MVP conversation. That's how good he is. For me, isn't he a year senior to Luka? He came in a year before,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
yeah, so it's he's a little behind the curve. He's an excellent player. Don't get me wrong. It's and I mean, me even saying this is a recognition of his level of talent. I'm saying for his talent, he's probably a step behind the curve. Not in learning, just in output. Like he has all of the requisite skills. He's a two-way player. He has the size. He's probably grown an inch or two since coming into the league. He's got strength. He's got mid-range. He can finish strong at the rim.
Not scared to take on the pressure shots.
Yeah, not scared to take on the best assignment on defense either. The toughest assignment. So he's got all of the makings. It's just, I mean, time to elevate. And sadly for him, because they've been to the conference finals at least twice or thrice or whatever in the last 5 years.
Right.
Now the benchmark has to be the finals. Because they've been there. They've been there. And it's largely pretty much the same squad. Here and there a few pieces, but largely the same squad. So it's time to elevate. And maybe just maybe they would get the support they need from the front office next season. Because I legit think this can be like a back-to-back in the finals or contending sort of team. I don't see why the Celtics are not today what the Phoenix Suns are in the West.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. I really I've been enjoying watching them play. I would say at least in the last 2 weeks, I watched a lot of their games and they're fantastic to watch. They don't give away any free points. Very few turnovers, very few points of turnovers, of course. And then Tatum just elevating and getting those buckets when you need.
They're like Miami. They're like Miami with a working offense.
And much more entertaining.
and no fights on the sidelines yet.
No fights. Yet. Yes, all the fights happen in the locker room when Marcus Smart gets disgruntled. When you talk about the East, right? I mean, there's so much attention on Philadelphia because they acquired Harden. There's so much attention on now the Celtics because they're the best defense in the league. And even when you talk about the overall league, then you talk about the Phoenix Suns, how good they are and all that. And Warriors, can they be fit? We and Brooklyn Nets, of course, always because they have KD and Kyrie. We kind of discount the Milwaukee Bucks a little too much, don't we? I mean, we've been saying that Milwaukee Bucks are the favorites. I agree. I am with you on this. But all of the analysts, all of the media, why are the Milwaukee Bucks not considered amongst the favorites?
Because they don't get any traction from talking about them. Whenever we say analyst media, largely we're talking about the publicly distributed channels, right? Then is the ESPN a paid channel or are they on public waves?
Both. I mean, you have a free version and you have a paid version. So
yeah, and then there's Fox and all this crap. Mostly when we talk about analysts, these are the prominent ones. Do you find it odd how often they find a way to insert LeBron into every title?
Yeah. And now I think the new because LeBron is not winning the MVP, of course. I think the new face is Embiid because the attention that Embiid gets for MVP and like. It's unreal. He's not even the second best player right now in the league. He's probably the third best player.
He had a flash in the pan run as the absolute best. Flash in the pan is, I don't want to belittle
20 games.
As
20,
exactly.
Games.
As the undisputed king of the league. He had a stretch. He had a stretch like how Houston Rockets won 6 games. Since then, before that, post that, I mean, if you ask for consistency, we've discussed this before, it has to be Giannis. It just has to be Giannis. League standing. He's probably on track to be the scoring champion. Yeah. And he should, if everyone is in their senses, win DPOY. The fuck more do you want from him?
There's nobody else who's a contender because Draymond has missed so many games. Yeah. Rudy Gobert has missed games and he's not at the level that he was last season.
Yeah. Giannis, I mean, I don't know if people get it. Giannis is the best defensive player in basketball right now.
There is no debate about that. If you give Mikal Bridges or someone the defensive player of the year, I don't know what to say. He's one of the names that's being discussed. So.
Oh my God. Why? Because he keeps swiping at the ball. That's
about it.
It's like a broken Xbox controller. He just does this a lot.
Great defender, but DPOY, nah.
I just, of course, he's amazing, but not a DPOY. All right.
Yes.
Anyway. So all of this has something to do with it because Embiid gets traction. Embiid is social media gold. LeBron gets traction. Most analysts today are just social media princesses trying to get onto whatever is trending. Everyone's a diva. Everyone wants those clicks and ones that reach. And it makes sense that we talk about Bucks because have you seen our reach? So it's I guess a lot of that. I guess a lot of that plays into it. I think it's also. I don't know. It's a small market team that doesn't really evoke that kind of buzz. The whole country is is not jumping when they win. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
if the
somehow
Lakers
it's
win,
like there's an excuse that the Bucks won because it was a COVID infected season and there was a lot of breaks and
no, I mean
players not fully
they
fit.
say that about
And
the Lakers also, right? The bubble season excuses come and go, but I don't know. It's one of those franchises that's not hot, that's not really talked about in general. They're not a part of the social media conversation, the culture as much as say. Look at the Miami Heat. Look at the Clippers. Even they get bashed half the time, but they're there. They're in the conversation, right? Bucks are on the fringes. Suns, by the way, don't get the kind of credit they deserve.
I know they're
They've clinched
by
the
leaps
West.
and bounds the better team. They've clinched the West. They're not.
Yeah.
They have home court advantage for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So I think it has to do with that. It's just if you're like the Jazz could be topping the West right now, nobody would be talking about
it. Yeah, they did last season.
Yeah, nobody cares. It's one of those small market franchises where it takes time to build up cachet, to build up and integrate yourselves into the conversation at a national level or whatever is their national conversation, and maybe then they'll start getting recognition, because right now you don't get traction from raving about the Milwaukee Bucks. Nobody cares. You got a lot of traction from. You could rave about the Knicks and say they're on the come up. These guys have done an amazing job, and your TRPs go nuts. Bucks don't fetch that kind of thing. So there is disincentive in being generous to the Bucks, and for some reason I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's xenophobia. I don't know what it is that counts against Giannis, or is it fatigue? Is it lobbies and narratives in the background? Because I'd imagine there's more than one player, active or retired, whose legacy is being hammered in by Giannis on a daily basis. Because every time there is a Giannis ascension, somebody's legacy gets hurt. Are you really that player if this guy at 27 already has 3 MVPs, a Finals MVP, a DPOY, this or that, blah, 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 and a scoring title?
Right.
That knocks off at least 3 people from the top 50. He's in the top 75. He should be in the top 50. It bumps off a bunch of people from the top 50 already, and he's 26, 27, whatever. So maybe there's active lobbying. I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron has somebody to tell somebody not to vote for Giannis, because little fucker's getting a little too close now. Like if he got that third MVP, which there could be an argument that he deserves it, if not for voter fatigue, this would be his fourth. He's at par with LeBron James, and he's 26, 27. So I don't know. Maybe there's some of that lobby.
Well, LeBron faced a little bit of that unfair non-getting those votes as well.
He did. So ironic, huh?
Yep. Everyone gets their turn, I guess. It's crazy when you look at the Bucks, right? When these big three play, they rarely lose. They lost like 9 games, I think, throughout the season, where Middleton, Drew, and Giannis plays. And now you have Brook Lopez back. And I'll tell you why Brook Lopez is important. Because on the bench now, you not Disneyland. On the bench now you have Bobby Portis, because when Bobby Portis was playing, your bench kind of was weak. You had backup playing and you had your draft pick playing or whoever, right? Or Thanasis playing. But now you have Bobby Portis as a backup, and that means you have scoring, you have good rebounding, and he's having a career year.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be really important when you look at their bench. Now you have Pat Connaughton, who has proved himself in the playoff last season, and he's just coming back from injury. You have the experience of Hill, who can prove to be, he's a good 3-point shooter. He has the experience. He's kind of a light version of Chris Paul, you could say. Not at that level at all. 50% of Chris Paul.
I get what you mean,
Yeah, right. So I think, and when it comes to playoffs, you'll see Giannis playing at least 10 more minutes than he does in the regular season. He just plays 30 minutes every game in the regular season. 10 more minutes of Giannis, he'll end up with 35, 15, and 10 every single game. That's like Jokic numbers, because Jokic plays 40 minutes every game.
That's another point, right? That you should make. Whenever people bring up Jokic stats, it's like if Giannis played Jokic minutes, he'd have more than those stats. It's not even close. I don't know. No, I like the Bucks before Lopez, but I see what you mean with Lopez. Sorry, were you saying something?
No, how do you stop this Bucks juggernaut? Because they're getting, Middleton has kind of come into a zone now in the last 1 month, I could say. Since the All-Star break, he's looked like Middleton that we know. Brook Lopez is back, great addition. Giannis playing more minutes as we head into the playoffs. It's going to be dangerous for the team. How do you stop this team? This is a team that won the championship last season. How do you stop it?
With great perimeter defense and hoping Giannis has an off night. It's tough. I think it's a bit like trying to stop the Lakers, when the three-peat Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, because there's this dominant big guy, but then there's also a strong perimeter. And we say Shaq, Kobe, Lakers, but there were a bunch of players there that could kill you.
Right.
There's Derek Fisher and there's Horry and Fox and all those guys. I think we can talk about schemes and formations and setups and all of those things, but the fundamental outcome to be achieved is your target one is get the ball out of Giannis's hands. That has to be your first target.
So I'm saying that Giannis can still have a bad day. It's okay. They're not going to win 16-0 like the Lakers won then, or like the Warriors did a few years ago. They're not going to win that. They'll lose 1 or 2 games in every series. It's a given. Giannis will have bad days. Middleton will have bad days. They're not perfect, right? But for Giannis to have 4 bad days in a series,
that's okay.
It's very difficult to see that.
He doesn't have to, and it's not going to happen. But that's true of so many legendary players. That's true. You're playing the Nets. How do you beat the Nets? No way KD has 4 bad games in a series. It's not going to happen. You can't shut down KD. You can't shut down Harden. You can't shut down Kyrie. You can't shut down a whole bunch of players. In a series, it's not going to happen. And that is why you don't see Devin Booker and the likes ascend to that level yet. Because you can shut down Devin Booker for a series.
Yeah.
As amazing as he is, he's not at that level where he's just untouchable on the court. Right? So you can't. You can mitigate the damage Giannis does, and you can pick up micro wins. What do I mean by that? Giannis is going to kill you in the interior on defense. How do you create mismatches? Because however good he is, he's not going to defend. Extreme example, but let's say they make it to the finals. He's not going to defend Devin Booker in the mid range or on the perimeter as well as he can defend Ayton in the paint.
Right.
That's just a fact. So how do you create these mismatches and all of these things? But fundamentally, that's on the other end of the court. Get the ball out of Giannis's hands when they attack, or make him settle for those jump shots. Because Giannis in the paint is the biggest problem. I know he's developed a mid-range. His percentages are on the
of course. It's not the best version of him, of course, but
even at his best, his mid-range game is average among the upper class.
100%. Right? 100%.
So force those shots or get the ball out of his hands. Now, how to do it? That's where the scheming comes in. That's where the matchups come in and all that. Once the ball's out of his hands, who does it go to? It goes to Drew. It goes to Connaughton. It goes to Middleton. It goes to all of these players. Now, Connaughton, etc., a whole bunch of teams have these kind of squad players and shooters, right? So they're not going to win your series. So you're effectively left with Drew and Middleton. Drew in a lot of series is not going to have the same energy level because he'll have a pretty tough assignment at the other end. Most series he's going to be quite occupied. Like let's say Philly, he has to be the one that guards Harden. That's not going to be easy. So he's not going to have the same level of energy on offense. You're left with Middleton. And that's why I bring back the Shaq Kobe Lakers comparison, because Giannis is Shaq or close to Shaq, at least numbers wise, maybe a slightly different play style, but the numbers are dangerously close to Shaq levels. Middleton not Kobe though.
Yeah.
You can get the ball out of Giannis's hands, it goes to Middleton. There'll be games where he can kill you, but there'll be enough games where it is possible to shut Middleton down. It's the same as with Devin Booker. It's the same as with some other players who have not yet unlocked that highest level. It's possible to shut him down. Wasn't the case with the Lakers, because even when Shaq was taken out of the game, a very young Kobe, it wouldn't be great. It wouldn't be perfect in terms of finesse, but he'd get it done. You can't shut Kobe down. That was the difference. And that, I think, is the only hope you have against a strong team like this, is get the ball out of Giannis' hands.
Do you think, the Bucks won last season, of course, but they were not the best version of Bucks. I feel they still lost a couple of games against Atlanta. They were terrible in some games to start off this finals as well against the Phoenix Suns.
Only in the finals did we see the best version of the Bucks.
And Giannis was coming off from an injury, if you remember, right? I still think that can be better. Like Middleton was awesome. I can't see Middleton being better than that. But I feel Giannis has been better than that this season. And then you have Bobby Portis, who's played better than what he was last season. He's having a career year, like I said. There were games where they should have won and they lost. Against Brooklyn Nets, everyone talks about Kevin Durant's foot and how Kevin Durant almost single-handedly knocked out the Bucks. Fair enough, but I think game 5 it was where Bucks came dangerously close to winning and Giannis made a fumble on a throw.
They should have closed it out.
They should have closed it out, right? Nobody talks about that because they didn't get it. It was not game 7. Nobody remembers that. So I'm saying the Bucks still had one level to go and they still won the title. And if they unlock that level, it's going to be difficult to beat them anyway. Like, I don't see any team shutting. Who are the teams that can shut them down in the East, first of all? Embiid?
Nah.
I don't think Embiid is fit enough to play 40 minutes for 3 consecutive series, first of all. He's never proved that. You saw that in the series last season against Atlanta. You see his fourth quarter numbers, they were terrible. This season, in fact, his fourth quarter numbers are terrible. He plays amazing for 3 quarters, easy games, he gets it done, great.
Yeah, if they beat the Bucks, it has to be Harden. It's not Embiid that...
Harden doesn't have a great history in the playoffs, right? And big games, he kind of goes missing. I mean, he will get you, probably one game, he'll go off and get you 50 points. Won't surprise me, but to do it 3-4 times...
So I don't think that'll happen against the Bucks because I think they have enough defensive power to throw at Harden.
Exactly. Jrue Holiday can take on your best offensive player. And he can slow him down. He doesn't have to shut him down, but he can reduce you to 20 points.
He's not shutting down Harden. But
he can reduce you to 20 points.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So...
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Bucks do have another other level. A lot of it is Giannis just playing better. But I think that's a little theoretical because what is the best version of this Bucks? It's where Brook Lopez starts, Bobby Portis brings that big man energy off the bench. You have your blocking, your interior defense, your rebounding set, and Giannis contributes in all these departments. And then at the other end, Giannis is the phenom that, let's say, we saw in the last 4 games of the finals last season. Something like that would be his best version. And this season, I know he's given us better numbers and stuff, but it's the regular season. Can't compare it to the finals.
Yeah.
So let's assume that's the best version of Giannis. Now, then you have Middleton, who stepped up, especially in the Atlanta series. I think him and Jrue really had a good run. But towards the end, if you remember, Giannis was so good that we kind of forget Middleton was here and there in the finals, and Jrue in more than one game was underwhelming, significantly underwhelming in the finals. So if they can get all of these going, and that's why I say it's theoretical, because can it happen? Sure, but it's a little too on paper. That everyone is the best version of themselves, and that's when the team's the best version of itself. Maybe not. Maybe it takes somebody to dial it down a notch so the other guy can fly. Let's see. But I think even if Giannis is able to get his best version turned on, which is a lot, which I don't know how it works out in the long run, right? This intensity both ends of the floor with that kind of play style. We worried about Zion with the Derrick Rose thing. I don't think it's a similar kind of fear, but I think as a player, your shelf life's got to take a hit in the long run, unless you make some adjustments like LeBron did, right? LeBron, after a point, he, as fit as he is, there's no way that play style was sustainable for him. So I think sometime around 2012, 2013, he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to defend. Every once in a while, I'll show up on defense, but otherwise...
he'll get one big block in the finals and put his name up there.
Otherwise, I'm done. I'm not taking that assignment. So, I don't know. But yeah, that's the best version. For me, the Bucks, Giannis has to be at his best. As long as Jrue and Chris don't stink it up, they're good. It's okay.
How much do you think they'll miss PJ Tucker? Because he was a big factor in that series against Brooklyn Nets.
Not that much. I think we tend to get a little too romantic about these kind of stories. PJ Tucker is a good defensive player. He played some great defense.
And great character, great leader to have.
For sure. I think that would be missed. That would be missed a whole lot more than just the play. I think the play is still replaceable. You can find people who can defend that way. But a lead by example model guy, that would be missed. And I'm sure they will realize that in the playoffs this season. But not to the extent that it should cost this team. Because a lot of times you find these... it was their first trip to the finals. It was their first bid to win the chip, and you needed these players. A lot of the players now, even minus PJ Tucker, themselves carry now the experience and the wounds of a successful finals campaign. So whenever these guys go on, like when Connaughton goes to another franchise, you're going to say, oh, they acquired this great shooter with championship caliber, championship experience. They're there. They're those guys already. I think they're all right. A small blow, but it's not the end of the world.
Do you see a Bucks versus Celtics final if they don't clash before?
Conference finals, possible. Is it like, how does the playoff tree start?
Well, it's all mixed because the Bucks and the Celtics are just half a game away. 2, 3, 4, that can be muddled up. In fact, Miami have been on a losing streak. They lost against the Philadelphia Sixers and they lost against the Warriors yesterday as well. So they could as well slip up. It's just 2 games ahead. So it could just get messed up by the time. So I don't even want to look at it right now. But I'm just saying, if they avoid each other, do you see one of them beating the Brooklyn Nets? I want a Bucks versus Nets matchup somewhere in there. First round, second round, doesn't matter, but that's going to be a classic.
So I want a Bucks versus Nets finals. I don't know if that's even theoretically possible, the way the tree is shaping up.
It could. I mean, the Nets could finish 7th or 8th, right? It's up to them. So
on the other side, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be my dream matchup. Bucks Celtics is interesting, but I would much rather see,
of course, big names.
Celtics and the 76ers. I'm saying that matchup excites me. And then whoever may the best man win in the finals. But at some stage, we want to see Bucks Nets, just because why not rematch, and this time with Kyrie the twist, and Celtics, because I really want to see what that defense does to James Harden and how. Okay. Because Celtics don't give a fuck they're not afraid of anyone in the playoffs, almost because you get the sense they don't care if they go home. I think it's one of the other kind of being not afraid. It's not like the Bucks where they feel they're so good that they'll take on anyone. With the Celtics, they are good, but they look like they don't give a damn if they get eliminated. So they're not really afraid of you, whereas Philadelphia is shitting bricks if they get eliminated.
I would love the Sixers take on the Nets somewhere. I don't know how that's possible because the Sixers are actively trying to avoid them. Yeah, just for the drama. But I think the Nets should come out comfortable winners, especially given that Kyrie is now eligible to play all games. So
that's what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of the kids today who started watching basketball 2 years ago, who are new to the sport, they look at Trae Young and they think, oh, look at how he handles the hostile crowd. Wait till you watch Kyrie. So it's a whole different... I think it's too easy for the Nets. For really that matchup, I don't think it's any sweat for the Nets.
I've seen myself shift from the Nets. I mean, when the season started, I didn't like the Nets at all because they put together a super team, KD and Kyrie and Harden, and somehow I didn't like them. But after this whole Harden saga and the unfairness that is happening with Kyrie, I somehow find myself tilting towards liking the Nets. I'm rooting for Kyrie suddenly.
Surprisingly, Kyrie has been their greatest PR weapon. He's the guy that got them bashed. Then he's the guy that, despite all the bashing and getting to play once in a blue moon, comes and just...
Everyone's voting for him now.
Just wrecks teams. Content is king. You can do whatever, but if you're going to put a good product out on the court, everyone's coming back. True. Then to the point where he got James Harden so disgruntled, he tantrumed and forced his way out of the team. And somewhere there, that made Harden the heel. He just became the bad guy.
Yep.
And Kyrie is the baby face. I don't know how he turned this shit around.
Like, Kyrie didn't get vaccinated. We roasted him so much for not getting vaccinated. And now we're like, yeah, who cares?
It's a PR case study by Kyrie.
All right, then. Great fun talking to you. We'll be back on Monday. Have a nice weekend. And hopefully we'll see the Bucks and the Celtics do well.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.